The hegemony border station emerged from hyperspace like a metallic flower blooming in the void. Marcus watched through the observation deck's massive windows as the structure grew larger, revealing its true scale. The station was easily 50 kilometers across, with rotating sections that generated artificial gravity and docking bays that could accommodate ships the size of Manhattan city blocks. Impressive, is it not? Zektar had approached silently, a skill that seemed at odds with his massive frame. Border Station Theta 7 processes over 1 million beings annually, representing 437 different species. Your kind will be the 438th. Marcus nodded politely while mentally cataloging the defensive emplacements he could see. The station bristled with weapon systems that made the dominant Fang's armament look modest by comparison. Massive energy cannons tracked their approach, and he could see patrol craft moving in complex patterns that suggested a sophisticated defense grid. How long has the hegemony existed? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. 12,000 standard years, Zektar replied with obvious pride. We have brought peace and order to this sector of the galaxy, uniting diverse species under a common banner of civilization. Wars that once raged for millennia have been reduced to minor border disputes. Criminal organizations like the Red Nebula are the only remaining threats to galactic stability. The docking procedure took several hours, during which Marcus observed the station's operations through the ship's internal monitoring system. The hegemony clearly possessed technology that could reshape matter at the molecular level, gravity, manipulation that bordered on the miraculous, and energy sources that seemed to violate several laws of physics. Yet something about their approach to warfare struck him as oddly rigid, almost ceremonial. When they finally disembarked, Marcus found himself in a processing center that resembled a cross between an airport terminal and a military installation. Beings of dozens of different species moved through scanning stations, their documentation reviewed by officials who seemed to possess photographic memories and the ability to process information at superhuman speeds. Marcus Chun, a new voice called. This translator rendered the words imperfect, unaccented English, suggesting more advanced technology than Zektar's device. The being addressing him was different from the others, smaller, more compact, with skin that seemed to be made of living silver and eyes that glowed with internal light. I am Intelligence Coordinator HFY. Please accompany me for additional screening procedures. Your unique circumstances require special attention. Marcus followed the coordinator through corridors lined with artwork from hundreds of different worlds. The diversity was staggering, crystalline sculptures that sang when touched, paintings that shifted and moved like living things, and installations that existed in more dimensions than his eyes could properly process. They arrived at an office that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. The walls displayed real-time views of different star systems, and the furniture appeared to be grown from the same material as the ship's hull. HFY gestured to a chair that molded itself to Marcus's body as he sat. The Red Nebula attack. On your vessel was not random, HFY began without preamble. Our intelligence networks indicate they were specifically targeting your research mission. They were seeking something your people developed, a defensive technology that performed far beyond their expectations. Marcus kept his expression neutral. I'm not sure what you mean. We were conducting basic stellar cartography research. Please, Marcus Chun, the quantum resonance signatures detected from your vessel's wreckage indicate the use of gravitic shielding technology that should not exist in your region of space. More concerning is the fact that 3 Red Nebula attack ships were found completely disabled, their crews unconscious but unharmed. This suggests a level of technological sophistication that contradicts our initial assessment of your species' development. The intelligence coordinator leaned forward, his glowing eyes intensifying. We need to understand what your people have discovered. The Red Nebula has been acquiring advanced technologies from various sources, building towards something we have been unable to determine. If they now possess whatever enabled you to defeat their forces, They don't, Marcus interrupted. The defensive systems were completely destroyed when our ship was lost. Whatever they were hoping to capture went down with the Aurora. This was technically true, though it omitted the fact that the technology existed primarily in Marcus's memory and the classified data storage device implanted in his skull, a device that would be undetectable to most scanning systems. HFY studied him for a long moment. Your psychological profile is interesting. Marcus Chun, you display none of the stress indicators typical of beings who have experienced traumatic combat. Your heart rate remains steady, your brain activity patterns suggest calculated thought rather than emotional response. This is not the profile of a simple researcher. Marcus decided to take a calculated risk. I told War Commander Zektar that I served in special operations. That training doesn't disappear when you leave the service. Indeed. Which brings us to our proposition. HFY activated a holographic display that showed ship formations moving through space. The Red Nebula fleet is massing in the Karagon system, just beyond our current patrol routes. Intelligence suggests they are preparing for a major operation, possibly an assault on one of our core worlds. We require additional information about their capabilities, particularly their ability to counter advanced defensive systems. The display shifted to show a sleek vessel unlike any Marcus had seen before. It was clearly hegemony design, but seemed purpose-built for stealth and infiltration rather than direct combat. The scout ship Silent Blade will insert a reconnaissance team into the Karagon system. Given your unique experience with Red Nebula tactics and technology, we would like you to accompany this mission as a tactical advisor. Marcus studied the mission parameters displayed in the hologram. The scout ship was fast and well-equipped, but the mission profile suggested they would be vastly outnumbered if discovered. Standard hegemony doctrine appeared to favor overwhelming force and direct confrontation, an approach that would be suicide in this situation. What about the other survivors from my ship? Marcus asked. They will remain here, comfortable and safe, until the mission is complete and transport to your homeworld can be arranged. Consider this an opportunity to repay the hegemony's hospitality, while helping us eliminate the threat that destroyed your vessel. Marcus recognized the subtle threat in HFY's words. The other survivors were essentially hostages, ensuring his cooperation. But the opportunity to get closer to hegemony technology and military capabilities was too valuable to pass up. I'll need access to detailed intelligence files on the Red Nebula, specifications for the scout ship systems, and profiles of the reconnaissance team, Marcus said. If I'm going to serve as a tactical advisor, I need to understand what I'm working with. HFY's silver skin shifted to a warmer hue, apparently an expression of satisfaction. Excellent. The mission launches in 36 hours. Until then, you will be given Security Clearance Beta 7 and access to our tactical databases. I believe you will find hegemony military capabilities. Educational. As Marcus was escorted to his temporary quarters, he realized he was walking a very dangerous line. The hegemony clearly suspected his people possessed advanced technology, but they had no idea just how advanced it really was. The classified systems he'd helped develop were decades ahead of anything the Red Nebula had demonstrated, and potentially superior to much of what he'd observed from the hegemony itself. The question was whether he could complete this mission, gather the intelligence he needed, and find a way to protect both his fellow survivors and Earth itself from becoming unwilling participants in a galactic conflict that was clearly larger than anyone had initially realized. Marcus Chen floated in the cramped escape pod, watching the stars spin lazily through the tiny viewport. 3 days since the research vessel Aurora had been destroyed by what the survivors called space pirates, though Marcus suspected they were dealing with something far more organized. The distress beacon had been broadcasting continuously, and now, finally, a massive ship approached through the void. The vessel that came to rescue them defied every expectation Marcus had developed during his 20 years as a Navy SEAL. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length. Its hull a patchwork of different metals that gleamed with an oily rainbow sheen. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the eyes of some ancient sea creature, and energy fields shimmered around rotating sections that seemed to move independently of the main structure. When the rescue beam locked onto their pod, Marcus felt the familiar tingle of advanced technology at work. The sensation reminded him of the experimental gear he'd tested in Black Ops missions, but this was orders of magnitude more sophisticated. As they were drawn into the massive cargo bay, he noticed other rescued pods from various species. Their occupants visible through transparent sections, the airlock cycled with a sound like distant thunder, and Marcus stepped onto deck plating that felt warm beneath his boots. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth normal, and the air carried scents he couldn't identify, ozone, mixed with something floral and another smell like heated metal, his first sight of their rescuers made. Marcus grateful for his training in maintaining composure under extraordinary circumstances. The creatures before him stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms ending in hands that possessed too many joints. Their skin had a crystalline quality that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on the angle of the light. Most striking were their eyes, large, multifaceted organs that seemed to track multiple objects simultaneously. "Welcome aboard the battlecruiser Dominant Fang," the lead being said, its voice emerging from a translator device that rendered the words in accented but clear English. "I am War Commander Zektar of the Hegemony Defense Corps. You are now under the protection of the Galactic Hegemony." Marcus stepped forward, noting how the aliens' weapons, sleek devices that hummed with barely contained energy, tracked his movement. "Thank you for the rescue, Commander. I'm Marcus Chung, formerly of the research vessel Aurora. We're grateful for your assistance." Zektar's multifaceted eyes focused on him with unsettling intensity. "Your species is new to us, Marcus Chun. The galactic database contains no records of your kind. What military experience do you possess?" The question seemed oddly specific for a rescue situation, but Marcus had learned to adapt quickly to unexpected circumstances. "I served in my planet's naval forces. Special operations." Something that might have been amusement rippled across Zektar's crystalline features. "Special operations. How quaint. In the hegemony, we have warriors who can level cities with their minds, soldiers who have been genetically enhanced to survive in the vacuum of space, and battle scions who can predict enemy movements before they happen. Your primitive military training will seem rather basic in comparison." Marcus simply nodded, filing away every detail of the conversation. The way Zektar spoke suggested this wasn't just idle boasting. These beings possessed capabilities that challenged everything he understood about warfare. But he'd learned long ago that the most dangerous enemies were often those who underestimated their opponents. As they were led through corridors that stretched beyond sight, Marcus observed the ship's crew. The hegemony appeared to be composed of multiple species, each more exotic than the last. Beings with tentacles instead of arms operated control stations, while others that seemed to be made of living metal moved with perfect synchronization. Energy weapons were everywhere, integrated into armor that looked like it had been grown rather than manufactured. "Your timing was fortunate," Zektar continued as they walked. "The sector has been experiencing increased activity from a criminal organization known as the Red Nebula Syndicate. They have been raiding civilian vessels and disrupting trade routes. We are currently pursuing their fleet." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's atmosphere. "The beings who attacked our ship, did they have ships covered in red markings?" Zektar stopped abruptly, all 4 arms moving in what Marcus interpreted as surprise. "You encountered the Red Nebula directly? Describe these attackers." "Humanoid, about our size, with gray skin and technology that seemed advanced but crude compared to what I'm seeing here. Their ships were fast, but not particularly well armed. They seemed more interested in capturing than destroying." "Interesting." Zektar's translator conveyed a note of respect that hadn't been there before. "The Red Nebula typically leaves no survivors. Your vessel must have mounted an unexpectedly effective defense." Marcus chose his words carefully. "We had some advantages they weren't expecting." In truth, the Aurora had been carrying more than just research equipment. Marcus had been aboard as part of a classified mission to test new defensive technologies in deep space, technologies that had proven devastatingly effective against the attacking ships. But revealing that information seemed unwise until he better understood the political situation. They arrived at what? appeared to be guest quarters, a spacious room with amenities that suggested the hegemony treated rescued civilians well. Other survivors from the Aurora were already there. Looking overwhelmed but unharmed, Dr. Sarah Kim, the mission's lead scientist, approached Marcus with obvious relief. "Marcus, thank God you're safe. These beings have been asking detailed questions about our defensive capabilities. I've been trying to explain that we're just researchers, but they seem convinced we must have military secrets." Marcus glanced around, noting the subtle monitoring devices integrated into the room's structure. "Just answer their questions honestly, but stick to your area of expertise. Let me handle anything related to security." Zektar lingered in the doorway, his multifaceted eyes fixed on Marcus. "We will be arriving at the Hegemony border station in 6 standard cycles. There, you will be properly processed and assigned quarters until transport to your homeworld can be arranged. I trust you will find our hospitality adequate." After the war commander left, Marcus moved to the viewport and studied the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was Earth, now seeming impossibly distant. But more immediately concerning was the growing certainty that the Red Nebula attack hadn't been random. The questions the hegemony forces were asking, the way they'd responded to his mention of special operations training, the fact that they were actively hunting the same organization that had attacked the Aurora, it all suggested he'd stumbled into something much larger than a simple rescue scenario. As he watched the alien starfield, Marcus began planning. Whatever was coming next, he intended to be ready for it. Marcus spent the next 30 hours immersed in hegemony tactical databases, and what he discovered both impressed and concerned him. The hegemony's military doctrine was built around technological superiority and overwhelming force projection. Their warriors were genetically enhanced, psychically gifted, or cybernetically augmented to superhuman levels. Their weapons could crack planets, their shields could withstand stellar radiation, and their ships moved through space-time like ancient gods striding between worlds, yet for all their technological prowess. Marcus noticed a critical weakness. They had never faced an enemy that fought dirty every battle record. Every tactical simulation, every strategic doctrine assumed honorable combat between organized military forces. The concept of asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, or psychological operations seemed completely foreign to their thinking. They were apex predators who had never encountered prey that fought back with cunning rather than strength. Fascinating reading. Marcus looked up to find a new arrival in the tactical center, a being that appeared to be made of living crystal and shadow. Energy sparked between its faceted limbs, and its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I am Combat Scion Veltar," the entity continued. "I will be leading the reconnaissance mission. Intelligence Coordinator Yixai speaks highly of your tactical insights." Marcus stood, noting how the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees around the Scion. "I'm still learning about hegemony capabilities. Your military traditions are impressive traditions." Veltar's form shifted, crystalline segments rotating in patterns that hurt to watch directly. An interesting choice of words. The hegemony has brought order to this galaxy through superior force and advanced technology. We do not rely on primitive tactics because we do not need to. The dismissive tone confirmed Marcus's growing suspicions. The hegemony's very strength had become a weakness. They couldn't conceive of enemies who refused to fight according to established rules. "Tell me about the Red Nebula," Marcus said. "Your database entries focus on their technology and organization, but what about their psychology? How do they think?" Veltar's energy patterns flickered with what might have been confusion. "They are criminals, pirates. They seek profit through violence and theft. What more is there to understand?" "Everything," Marcus replied. "If you want to defeat an enemy, you need to understand how they make decisions, what motivates them, what they fear. Pure technological superiority only works if your enemy is willing to face you directly." The Scion's form solidified slightly, becoming more defined. "You speak as if you have experience with such matters. Every special operations mission relies on understanding the enemy's mindset. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the one that deals the most damage, it's the one your enemy never sees coming. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of two more team members. The first appeared to be a standard hegemony soldier, the same, crystalline-skinned species as Zektar but smaller and more compact, with additional cybernetic implants covering nearly half his body. The second was unlike anything Marcus had encountered before. A being that seemed to be composed entirely of electromagnetic energy contained within a vaguely humanoid force field. Tech Specialist Corden, the cybernetic soldier, introduced himself, his translator rendering his voice with mechanical precision. I handle electronic warfare and system infiltration. Energy form Nixal, the electromagnetic being added. Its voice a harmonic resonance that bypassed Marcus's ears entirely and spoke directly to his auditory cortex. I specialize in ship-to-ship infiltration and non-corporeal reconnaissance. Marcus nodded politely while his mind raced. This team represented the pinnacle of hegemony military capability, yet they were approaching the mission like a training exercise. Their very confidence was going to get them killed. Has anyone considered that the Red Nebula might be expecting surveillance? Marcus asked. That they might have chosen the Karagon system specifically because they know the hegemony would send a reconnaissance team? Veltar's energy patterns shifted to what Marcus was learning to recognize as irritation. Our stealth technology is beyond their ability to detect. The Silent Blade can operate unobserved within their formations. What if they're not relying on technology to detect you? The question hung in the air as the team members exchanged glances, or whatever passed for glances, among beings who communicated through crystalline light patterns and electromagnetic fluctuations. Explain, Curtin said. His cybernetic implants humming with increased activity. Marcus moved to the tactical display, highlighting the Karagon system's layout. You're approaching this like a conventional military operation. But pirates don't think like soldiers. They think like predators. They set traps. He manipulated the display, showing potential ambush points and escape routes. Look at this system configuration. Multiple asteroid fields, unstable stellar activity, gravitational anomalies that would interfere with long-range sensors. It's not a staging area for a major assault. It's a killing ground designed to eliminate anyone who comes to investigate. Nixalis' energy form pulsed with what might have been concern. The intelligence reports indicate a massive fleet concentration, which could be entirely fabricated, Marcus replied. A few real ships equipped with holographic projectors, sensor ghosts, and energy signatures designed to mimic a larger force. Classic misdirection. Make your enemy think they're seeing something important so they'll commit valuable resources to investigating it. Veltar's crystalline form darkened. You suggest the Red Nebula is capable of such sophisticated deception? I suggest that any organization that's survived this long against the hegemony's technological superiority must be doing something you're not expecting. They're not winning through superior firepower. They're winning by making you fight the wrong battle. Marcus paused, watching their reactions. These beings were clearly intelligent and experienced, but their thinking was constrained by assumptions about how warfare should be conducted. There's another possibility you haven't considered, Marcus continued. What if the Red Nebula isn't just raiding ships and stealing technology? What if they're specifically targeting hegemony forces to study your tactics and capabilities? Every engagement teaches them more about how you fight, while you learn nothing new about them because you keep approaching them the same way. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Marcus could see the team members processing this concept, their alien thought patterns struggling with the idea of an enemy that learned and adapted rather than simply escalating technological capabilities. Your proposal? Veltar finally asked. We assume it's a trap and plan accordingly. We don't try to observe their fleet directly, we watch the system from outside, their detection range, and look for signs of the trap. Ship movements that don't match the supposed fleet composition. Communication patterns that suggest coordination between hidden assets. Environmental factors that have been artificially modified to create tactical advantages. Marcus manipulated the tactical display again, outlining a surveillance pattern that would keep the silent blade at extreme range while using passive sensors and gravitational lensing to gather intelligence. And if we determine it is indeed a trap? Curtin asked. Marcus smiled grimly. Then we spring it on our terms, not theirs? But first, we need to understand exactly what they're planning and how they intend to execute it. Knowledge is the only advantage that matters when you're outnumbered and outgunned. The team spent the next 6 hours revising their mission parameters, incorporating tactics that were entirely foreign to standard hegemony doctrine. Marcus could see the discomfort in their reactions. These beings were accustomed to overwhelming superiority. Not careful maneuvering in psychological warfare, but they were also learning. And Marcus realized he might have underestimated their adaptability. The question now was whether they could learn fast enough to survive what they were walking into. The silent blade dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Karagon system, its advanced stealth systems immediately engaging to mask their presence. Marcus stood on the bridge, watching alien star charts update in real time as the ship's sensors painted a picture of what lay ahead. What he saw confirmed his worst suspicions. Sensor analysis complete, Curtin reported, his cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Confirmed presence of 47 vessels in the target zone. Configuration matches intelligence projections for a Red Nebula assault fleet. Too perfect, Marcus muttered, studying the tactical display. The enemy ships were arranged in classic attack formations, exactly as hegemony strategic doctrine would predict. They're showing us exactly what we expect to see. Veltaris crystalline. Form shifted to project patterns of concentration. Explain your concern. Marcus highlighted several ship positions on the display. Look at the spacing between vessels. It's textbook, exactly the formation you'd use if you were planning to assault a heavily defended position. But it's also exactly the formation you'd create if you wanted someone to think you were planning such an assault. Nixal's energy form pulsed with electromagnetic inquiry patterns. You suggest the fleet itself is deception? I suggest we look deeper. Marcus moved to the sensor control station, his hands moving over interfaces that seemed to respond to intention as much as touch. Can we analyze the gravitational signatures of those ships? Mass distribution, structural integrity indicators, anything that would tell us if they're actually what they appear to be? The next several hours revealed a masterpiece of deception. Nearly half the ships in the supposed Red Nebula fleet were elaborate sensor ghosts, holographic projections, backed by minimal physical structures designed to fool long-range detection. The real ships were scattered throughout the system in positions that would allow them to converge on any investigation force that entered the central trap zone. Sophisticated, Veltar admitted, his energy patterns shifting to display grudging respect. They have studied our reconnaissance protocols extensively to design this deception. Marcus was already analyzing the trap's structure, looking for weaknesses and opportunities. It gets worse. Look at these communication patterns. He highlighted nearly invisible data streams connecting various points throughout the system. They're not just planning to destroy anyone who investigates. They're planning to capture hegemony technology and personnel for study. Curtin's cybernetic systems hummed with increased activity. Capture protocols would require specialized equipment. Boarding vessels, restraint systems, interrogation facilities, all of which we can't see from here, Marcus finished. They've got support infrastructure hidden somewhere in this system, probably using the asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies as cover. The team spent the next phase of the mission mapping the Red Nebula's actual positions and capabilities. What emerged was a picture of an organization that had evolved far beyond simple piracy. They were conducting systematic intelligence gathering against the hegemony, using captured technology to enhance their own capabilities while studying hegemony tactics to develop effective countermeasures. This changes everything, Nixal observed, electromagnetic patterns conveying deep concern. They are not merely criminals seeking profit. They represent a genuine strategic threat to hegemony expansion, Marcus nodded grimly. And they're about to become a much bigger threat. Look at this temporal analysis of their ship movements. He manipulated the display to show traffic patterns over the past several weeks. They've been gathering forces from throughout their territory. This isn't preparation for a single assault, it's preparation for a coordinated campaign. Veltar's form darkened with what Marcus had learned to recognize as alarm. We must return immediately with this intelligence. The Hegemony Council must be informed of the true scope of the threat. Agreed, Marcus said, but we have a problem. Look at the sensor pattern around the system's edge. He highlighted a network of monitoring stations that formed a detection grid around the entire region. They know we're here. They've been tracking us since we arrived. The revelation hit the team like a physical blow. These beings were accustomed to technological superiority that made them effectively invisible to their enemies. The concept that they could be detected despite their best stealth technology was almost incomprehensible. Impossible, Curtin stated flatly. Our stealth systems operate on principles that should be beyond their technological comprehension. Marcus was already running calculations on the ship's defensive systems. Unless they've had help. Remember, they've been capturing hegemony vessels for months, possibly years. They've had time to study your technology, reverse engineer your systems, develop countermeasures. The silent blade shuddered slightly as something impacted their shields. Marcus felt the familiar adrenaline surge of combat, but his alien teammates seemed stunned by the sudden transition from observer to target. Incoming vessels, Nixal reported, electromagnetic form flickering with stress patterns. Multiple attack craft converging on our position. Configuration unknown, not matching any Red Nebula designs in our database. Marcus moved to the tactical station, his fingers dancing across controls that seemed to respond to his intentions with increasing sophistication. Because they're not Red Nebula designs, they're hybrid ships built using captured hegemony technology. Faster, more maneuverable, but probably less heavily armed than pure hegemony vessels. Another impact shook the ship, stronger this time. Through the viewports, Marcus could see sleek craft moving in attack patterns that combined hegemony precision with something more chaotic and unpredictable. Defensive systems are holding, Valtar reported, but they are adapting their attack patterns to counter our shield harmonics. This should not be possible with their technology level. It's not their technology anymore, Marcus replied, studying the attacking ship's movements. They're using your own systems against you. But that gives us an advantage too. I know how to fight hegemony technology. The team stared at him with expressions that ranged from confusion to alarm. Marcus realized he had just revealed more about his background than he intended, but there was no time for explanations. Trust me, he said, taking manual control of the ship's defensive systems. Your standard combat protocols assume you're fighting inferior technology. These ships are using modified hegemony systems, so we need to fight them like we would fight other hegemony vessels. Marcus began implementing tactical maneuvers that seemed to defy the Silent Blade's design specifications. Instead of relying on superior firepower and shielding, he used the ship's advanced sensors and maneuvering systems to create tactical advantages through positioning and timing. Impossible, Corden breathed as Marcus guided the ship through a series of maneuvers that should have been beyond its capabilities. The ship's systems are not designed for such aggressive maneuvering. The ship's systems are designed to do whatever the pilot tells them to do, Marcus replied, using gravitational effects from nearby asteroids to slingshot around attacking craft. You've just been thinking too small. One by one, the attacking ships fell back, their pilots clearly unprepared for the unconventional tactics Marcus was employing. But he knew the respite was temporary. More ships were converging on their position, and eventually sheer numbers would overwhelm even the most sophisticated maneuvering. Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace, Marcus ordered, targeting a vector that would take them away from the main concentration of enemy forces. We've got what we came for, and staying here any longer will just get us captured or killed. As the Silent Blade accelerated toward jump distance, Marcus reflected on what they had learned. The Red Nebula was no longer just a criminal organization. They had become a legitimate military threat that understood hegemony weaknesses better than the hegemony understood its own vulnerabilities. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a disturbing thought was taking shape. If the Red Nebula could adapt hegemony technology so effectively, what would happen when they turned their attention to the defensive systems that had protected the Aurora? The emergency session of the Hegemony War Council convened within hours of the Silent Blade's return. Marcus found himself standing in a chamber that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, surrounded by beings whose very presence warped reality around them. Fleet commanders who had conquered star systems, battle science who could destroy worlds with focused thought, and intelligence coordinators whose minds processed information at near quantum speeds. The evidence is conclusive, Intelligence Coordinator HFY announced, displaying the reconnaissance data in three-dimensional holographic detail. The Red Nebula has evolved beyond a simple criminal organization. They now possess hybrid technologies that combine their own innovations with captured hegemony systems. Fleet Commander Kexmore, a being whose crystalline carapace bore the scars of a dozen major campaigns, radiated skepticism. Impossible. Our technology includes quantum-encrypted security protocols. Even captured systems cannot be reverse-engineered without access to our primary manufacturing matrices. Marcus stepped forward, knowing this was his moment to contribute crucial intelligence. Unless they're not trying to reverse-engineer complete systems. What if they're only adapting specific components, taking your shield harmonics and applying them to their own defensive grids? Or using your sensor protocols to design better stealth systems? The chamber fell silent. Marcus could feel the weight of alien attention focused on him, minds that operated on scales he could barely comprehend, analyzing his words for implications and possibilities. Elaborate, demanded War Coordinator Zethpal, whose form seemed to be composed of controlled nuclear fusion barely contained within energy fields. Marcus activated the tactical display, highlighting specific anomalies they had observed during the reconnaissance mission. Your technology is integrated, every system depends on every other system, but that integration becomes a weakness when pieces are stolen and adapted by enemies who understand your underlying design philosophy. He manipulated the display to show theoretical hybrid configurations. They don't need to understand how your faster-than-light communication works if they can simply record and replay your command protocols. They don't need to replicate your energy weapons if they can analyze your shielding frequencies and design counters. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with realization. They are not attempting to match our technological superiority. They are developing asymmetric countermeasures designed specifically to neutralize our advantages. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. And they're doing it using your own technology against you. Every ship you lose, every system they capture, makes them more effective at fighting hegemony forces specifically. Fleet Commander Kexmore's scarred carapace shifted as internal energy patterns increased. The strategic implications are severe. If they have indeed developed reliable countermeasures to our primary technological advantages, then they become a threat to hegemony stability throughout this entire sector, War Coordinator Zethpal finished, fusion patterns within his form fluctuating with barely contained aggression. Marcus sensed an opportunity to push the discussion toward more practical considerations. There's another factor to consider. The Red Nebula's ultimate goal isn't just to steal your technology, it's to force the hegemony into prolonged conflicts that drain your resources while they continue to adapt and evolve. He highlighted communication intercepts and movement patterns from their surveillance data. Look at these deployment schedules. They're not massing for a single decisive battle. They're preparing for a campaign of sustained harassment designed to force you to commit increasingly large forces to hunt them down. Intelligence Coordinator HFY's silver skin shifted to display complex analytical patterns, a war of attrition. They seek to force the hegemony to expend military resources while they continue to capture and study our technology. Which means, Marcus continued, that responding with overwhelming force is exactly what they want you to do. The more ships you send against them, the more opportunities they have to study your tactics and capture your technology. The War Council erupted in discussion as various members began analyzing the strategic implications. Marcus watched alien MINDs processed concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions about warfare and technological superiority. These beings had conquered most of a galaxy by assuming that superior technology guaranteed victory, but they had never faced an enemy that could turn that technology against them. "What do you recommend?" Veltar asked, his question cutting through the complex debate patterns of his colleagues. Marcus had been preparing for this moment since the reconnaissance mission began. "You need to think like your enemy instead of like yourselves. Stop trying to out-technology them and start out-thinking them." He moved to the tactical display and began outlining a strategy that violated every principle of hegemony warfare. Small units, unconventional tactics, weapons and systems they haven't seen before. Make them adapt to you instead of adapting to them. Impossible, Fleet Commander Kexmore declared. The hegemony does not employ primitive guerrilla tactics. Our military doctrine is based on proven principles of technological superiority and overwhelming force projection. Your military doctrine is based on fighting enemies who follow the same rules you do, Marcus replied. The Red Nebula doesn't follow those rules, which is why they've been successful against forces that should have destroyed them easily. War Coordinator Zethpol's fusion form brightened dangerously. You suggest we abandon 12,000 years of successful military tradition to adopt the tactics of criminals and terrorists? Marcus felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. These beings could vaporize him without effort, but they needed what he could offer more than they wanted to admit. "I suggest you use the right tool for the job," Marcus said carefully. "Your traditional tactics work perfectly against traditional enemies. But the Red Nebula isn't traditional. They're an asymmetric threat that requires asymmetric responses." He paused, watching alien faces process concepts that challenged their fundamental worldview. "There's something else you need to consider. If the Red Nebula has been successful in adapting your technology, what happens when they turn their attention to other species? What happens when they start applying these same tactics against your allies, your trade partners, your colonial populations?" The implications of galactic-scale asymmetric warfare slowly dawned on the War Council. An enemy that could adapt any technology, counter any advantage, and force any opponent into prolonged conflicts of attrition could destabilize the entire hegemony structure. Intelligence Coordinator Yixhai spoke first. "Your assessment suggests this threat extends far beyond simple criminal activity. The Red Nebula represents a potential existential challenge to hegemony stability. Which is why," Marcus continued, "you need to end this quickly and decisively. Not with overwhelming force, but with tactics they can't counter because they've never seen them before." Veltar's energy patterns shifted to display intense curiosity. "What specific tactics do you propose?" Marcus smiled grimly. "The kind that a Navy SEAL might use if he needed to take out an entire enemy fleet with minimal resources and maximum efficiency. The kind that work because the enemy never sees them coming and can't adapt fast enough to counter them." The War Council fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. Marcus could sense alien minds grappling with possibilities they had never considered, strategies that violated everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Present your proposal," War Coordinator Zethpol finally commanded. Marcus began outlining a plan that would have seemed impossible to conventional military thinking but made perfect sense when viewed through the lens of special operations doctrine. The hegemony was about to learn what happened when overwhelming technological superiority met unconventional tactical thinking, and somewhere in the back of his mind, Marcus wondered if he was about to teach these galactic powers something that would eventually be turned against Earth itself. 3 weeks later, Marcus floated in the command center of a ship unlike anything in the hegemony fleet. The Phantom Strike had been assembled in secret using components from a dozen different vessel types, its hull configured to appear as a damaged civilian transport while concealing weapon systems that operated on principles the Red Nebula had never encountered. "Final systems check complete," Curtin reported, his cybernetic implants interfacing with equipment that had been modified beyond standard hegemony specifications. "All stealth systems are operating at maximum efficiency. We are effectively invisible to conventional detection methods." Marcus nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the Red Nebula fleet's current position. Intelligence reports indicated they had moved to the Nexus sector, a region of space where multiple trade routes converged, perfect for their next phase of operations against hegemony shipping. Remember, Marcus addressed the strike team, this isn't about destroying their entire fleet. That's what they expect and what they're prepared for. Our goal is to eliminate their command structure and capture their technology adaptation centers intact. Veltar's crystalline form shifted patterns that indicated deep concentration. The psychological impact will be more significant than the tactical damage. Demonstrating that their technological countermeasures can be bypassed will undermine their confidence in stolen hegemony systems. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. Fear is more effective than firepower when you're outnumbered 50-1. The strike team had been assembled based on Marcus's specifications rather than standard hegemony protocols. Instead of the most powerful warriors available, he had requested specialists who could think flexibly and adapt quickly to unexpected situations. The result was a group that seemed modest by hegemony standards but was perfectly suited for unconventional warfare. Nixal's electromagnetic form pulsed with anticipation. Approaching optimal insertion point. Red Nebula sensor grid is operating on predicted frequencies. We should be able to penetrate their perimeter undetected. Marcus watched the enemy positions update in real time as their ship approached the fleet concentration. The Red Nebula had learned from their previous encounters, positioning their vessels in defensive formations that would make conventional assault extremely costly. But conventional assault wasn't what Marcus had in mind. Phase 1, Marcus announced. Curtin, begin broadcasting the fake distress signal. Make it look like a heavily damaged hegemony cruiser requesting emergency assistance. The tech specialists. Implants hummed as he initiated a complex deception protocol. To Red Nebula sensors, the Phantom Strike would appear to be a prize beyond imagination, a crippled hegemony warship loaded with advanced technology and intelligence data. Signal transmitted, Curtin reported. Red Nebula vessels are responding as predicted. 3 ships breaking formation to investigate. Marcus watched the enemy ships approach, their movement patterns revealing more about their capabilities and tactics than hours of conventional surveillance could provide. Notice how they're coordinating. They've learned to work together using modified hegemony communication protocols. But they're still thinking like pirates. They want to capture valuable assets, not just destroy them. The Red Nebula ships took positions around the seemingly crippled vessel, their crews no doubt preparing boarding operations to claim their prize. Marcus waited until they were fully committed before initiating Phase 2. Nixal, you're up? Marcus said quietly. The electromagnetic being flowed through the ship's energy conduits and projected itself across space, infiltrating the lead Red Nebula vessel through their modified hegemony shield systems. Within minutes, critical systems throughout the enemy ship began experiencing cascading failures as Nixal sabotaged them from within. Target vessel is experiencing power grid failures, Veltar reported, monitoring the enemy ship's energy signatures. Their hybrid systems are more vulnerable to electromagnetic interference than pure Red Nebula technology, because they don't fully understand what they've built, Marcus explained. They know how to copy hegemony components, but they don't understand the underlying principles well enough to properly integrate them. The lead Red Nebula ship was now drifting helplessly as its systems crashed in sequence. The other 2 ships moved to assist, bringing them within range of the Phantom Strike's concealed weapons. Phase 3, Marcus commanded. Take them! What followed wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. The Phantom Strike revealed its true nature in a burst of coordinated firepower that disabled both remaining ships before they could react. Specialized capture systems designed by Marcus locked onto the vessels, preventing their crews from destroying critical technology or intelligence data. All 3 ships secured, Curtin announced. Boarding teams are ready to proceed. Marcus led the assault personally, moving through the captured vessels with tactics that seemed alien to his hegemony companions. Instead of the methodical room-by-room clearing they expected, Marcus used speed, surprise, and psychological warfare to overwhelm resistance before it could organize. The Red Nebula crew members were humanoid, roughly the same size as humans but with gray skin and enhanced cybernetic modifications. What surprised Marcus was their level of organization and training. These weren't simple pirates but disciplined soldiers, operating with military precision. "Interesting," he murmured, studying captured equipment that showed clear evidence of systematic technology integration programs. "They've got research facilities, testing protocols, even quality control standards. This is a full military-industrial operation." Veltar's form materialized beside him, energy patterns displaying deep concern. "The scope of their technology adaptation efforts exceeds our intelligence estimates by several orders of magnitude. They have been conducting systematic research into hegemony systems for far longer than we suspected." The captured data files told a disturbing story. The Red Nebula had been stealing hegemony technology for decades, but only recently had they achieved the breakthrough that allowed effective integration of alien systems into their own designs. What had changed was their acquisition of something they called quantum resonance matrices, technology that Marcus recognized with a chill of understanding. "This is impossible," he whispered, staring at technical specifications that should have been classified at the highest levels of Earth's military research programs. Curtin approached with additional data files. "We have identified the location of their primary research facility. It appears to be a heavily fortified installation in the void reaches, a region of space thought to be uninhabitable." Marcus studied the facility schematics, his mind racing with implications. The Red Nebula hadn't just been stealing hegemony technology, they had been systematically acquiring advanced systems from multiple sources, including technologies that originated from Earth. "We need to assault that facility," Marcus said grimly. "Whatever they're working on there, it's going to change the balance of power in this entire region of space." Veltar's crystalline form darkened. "The facility appears to be defended by a fleet larger than any Red Nebula force we have previously encountered. Our strike team would be vastly outnumbered." Marcus was already analyzing the strategic situation, his training in asymmetric warfare suggesting possibilities that conventional military thinking would never consider. Being outnumbered is only a problem if you fight the battle they expect you to fight. He began outlining a plan that was audacious even by special operations standards, a direct assault on the Red Nebula's most heavily defended installation using tactics that would turn their own stolen technology against them. "This is our chance to end their technological adaptation program permanently," Marcus explained. "But we need to move fast, before they realize what we've learned and relocate their critical research." As the strike team prepared for what would either be their victory or their final mission, Marcus reflected on the growing complexity of the situation. The Red Nebula had access to technology that could threaten both the hegemony and Earth, but stopping them might require revealing capabilities that would make him a target for forces far more dangerous than any criminal organization. The next phase of the operation would determine not just the fate of the hegemony's war against the Red Nebula, but possibly the future of human involvement in galactic affairs. The Red Nebula research facility emerged from the cosmic void like a dark star, its massive structure dwarfing anything Marcus had encountered in his career. Built into a rogue planet that drifted between star systems, the installation was protected by energy fields that could repel asteroid impacts and weapon arrays that could engage targets across entire solar systems. "Final approach initiated," Curtin reported, his cybernetic systems interfacing with the Phantom Strike's enhanced stealth capabilities. "Facility defensive grid is operating at maximum efficiency. Detection probability remains minimal." Marcus studied the tactical display with growing unease. The facility's defenses weren't just extensive, they were intelligent, adapting their patrol patterns and sensor sweeps in response to environmental changes. This wasn't stolen hegemony technology crudely bolted together. This was something entirely new. "Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," Nixal observed, electromagnetic form flickering with concern. "The facility's power generation appears to be based on principles that combine multiple technological paradigms. Through The viewports, Marcus could see the installation's true scope. Docking bays large enough to service ships the size of hegemony battlecruisers, manufacturing complexes that stretched across continents of artificial surface area, and research facilities that seemed to burrow deep into the rogue planet's core. This isn't just a research station, Marcus realized. It's an entire industrial civilization dedicated to technological adaptation and integration. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with patterns Marcus had learned to recognize as deep alarm. The implications for hegemony security are severe. If the Red Nebula has achieved this level of technological synthesis, then they're not the Red Nebula anymore, Marcus finished. They're something entirely new, a civilization that specializes in taking everyone else's best ideas and making them better. The infiltration began according to Marcus's carefully developed plan. Instead of attempting to penetrate the facility's primary defenses, they would exploit the one weakness that no amount of stolen technology could eliminate: arrogance. Phase 1, Marcus announced. Begin broadcasting surrender protocols. The Phantom Strike began transmitting the complex signals that identified a hegemony vessel requesting to surrender rather than face destruction. To the facility's defenders, it would appear that their reputation for invincibility had finally convinced a hegemony strike team to give up rather than attempt a hopeless assault. Facility is responding, Curtin reported. We are being directed to Docking Bay 7 for processing and technology confiscation. As their ship was guided into the massive docking facility, Marcus noted details that confirmed his worst fears. The personnel moving around the docking bay represented dozens of different species, many of which he recognized from hegemony databases as advanced civilizations from distant sectors of the galaxy. They're not just fighting the hegemony, Marcus whispered. They're incorporating technology from every advanced species they encounter. This facility is a melting pot of galactic technological development. The docking bay sealed around their ship, and Marcus felt the subtle shift in atmospheric composition as environmental systems adjusted to accommodate multiple different species requirements simultaneously. When the boarding ramp extended, they were met by a reception committee that defied easy categorization. The leader appeared to be from the same species as the Red Nebula soldiers they had encountered, but enhanced with cybernetic modifications that incorporated technology from at least 6 different civilizations. His escorts included beings Marcus recognized as escaped hegemony research specimens, captured military specialists from a dozen different worlds, and creatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Welcome to the integration, the leader said, his voice emerging from a translation system more sophisticated than anything Marcus had seen in the hegemony. I am Research Commander Vexahal. Your surrender has been accepted, and your technology will be added to our collective capabilities. Marcus stepped forward, noting how the facility's security systems tracked his movement with sensors that combined hegemony quantum detection with technologies that operated on principles he couldn't identify. I'm Marcus Chen. I want to speak with whoever's in charge of this operation. Vexahal's cybernetic implants flickered with what might have been amusement. You are speaking with the appropriate authority. The integration operates through collective decision-making rather than hierarchical command structures. All acquired knowledge and technology is shared among all constituent members. As they were escorted through the facility's corridors, Marcus gained a deeper understanding of what they were facing. This wasn't a criminal organization that had gotten lucky with stolen technology. This was a new form of civilization that had solved the fundamental problem of technological development. Instead of spending centuries developing new capabilities, they simply integrated the best achievements of every species they encountered. Impressive, isn't it? Vexahal continued as they passed laboratories where beings from dozens of species worked together on projects that combined multiple technological paradigms. Your hegemony has spent 12,000 years expanding through force and intimidation. We have spent 50 years expanding through integration and cooperation. Cooperation? Veltar's energy patterns displayed barely contained rage. You attack civilian vessels and steal advanced technology. We liberate technological capabilities. From species that refuse to share their knowledge voluntarily, Vexahol corrected. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every advancement becomes part of our collective capability. Unlike the hegemony, we do not hoard knowledge for political advantage. Marcus was studying the facility's layout, noting security choke points and critical system locations. The integration's approach to technology development was undeniably effective, but it also created vulnerabilities that conventional military thinking wouldn't recognize. "Show me your most advanced projects," Marcus said suddenly. "If you're going to integrate our technology anyway, I want to see what you're capable of." Vexahol's implants flickered again. An unusual request from a surrendering enemy. Most species prefer not to understand the full scope of their obsolescence. They were led to a research complex that existed partially outside normal space-time, its laboratories extending into dimensions that Marcus's eyes couldn't properly process. The projects under development combined technologies from hundreds of different civilizations, creating capabilities that transcended anything possible within a single technological paradigm. "Fascinating," Marcus admitted, genuinely impressed despite the threat these developments represented. "You've solved integration problems that should take millennia to work out." "The key insight," Vexahol explained, "is that technological compatibility is less important than conceptual compatibility. Once you understand the underlying principles that drive any technology, adaptation becomes merely an engineering problem." Marcus nodded thoughtfully while his mind raced through tactical possibilities. The integration's strength was also its critical weakness. Their entire civilization depended on the ability to rapidly process and integrate new technological concepts. But what would happen if those concepts were deliberately designed to be incompatible with existing systems? "I'd like to contribute something to your collective," Marcus said carefully. "My species developed some unique approaches to defensive technology that might interest you." Vexahol's excitement was obvious despite his alien physiology. "Excellent. New defensive paradigms are always valuable, particularly those developed independently of galactic technological standards." Marcus moved to the nearest research station and began inputting data from the classified storage device in his skull. But instead of providing genuine technological specifications, he was uploading something far more dangerous, a computer virus designed to exploit the integration's own adaptation protocols. The virus was disguised as legitimate technical data describing Earth's gravitic shielding technology. But embedded within the specifications were logical contradictions and recursive loops that would propagate through any system that attempted to integrate the information. The more sophisticated the target system's adaptation capabilities, the more damage the virus would cause. "Integration commencing," the research station announced in a harmonious blend of voices from dozens of different species. "New technological paradigm detected. Beginning compatibility analysis." Marcus stepped back as warning indicators began flashing throughout the research complex. The integration's most advanced systems were attempting to process information that had been specifically designed to be unprocessable, creating cascade failures that spread through their entire technological network. "What have you done?" Vexahol demanded, his cybernetic implants sparking as they tried to interface with systems that were no longer responding to standard protocols. "I gave you exactly what you asked for," Marcus replied, drawing weapons that his teammates didn't know he carried. "The most advanced defensive technology my species ever developed, a defense against forced technological integration." The facilities' security systems were failing as the virus spread through networks that had been designed for maximum intercon.